Zoom. Zoom doesn't get Zoom like tells you like this podcast is being recorded.
Yeah.
Like it does all that bullshit. So like yeah, I'm back. First guest episode. I haven't done one of these Dom. I haven't done one of these in like I want to say it's been like a good year and a half, almost 2 years since I've actually recorded like a guest episode. Like you were pretty
really?
close to being one of the final people that I recorded a guest episode with for my other podcast.
Wow. Man, I feel special. I was one of the last and I'm one of the first.
Yeah, well, we have a good relationship together.
That's true.
That's like, I mean, if one of the people who's probably been like there and helped me a good bit throughout my coaching experience, it's just like kind of like how we converse in our DMs. Like it just made sense, right? So, kind of give an intro to who you are and what you do, and then we'll kind of get into it.
If you don't know me, my name is Dominic Kuza. I'm on Instagram as _Dom Kuza. I am a contest prep coach. I do lifestyle coaching as well. I mentor a lot of coaches and have an education program. I am a soon-to-be business owner. A couple other businesses I'm opening too. So, yeah, a lot of fitness stuff. I do a couple things outside of fitness too, but majority of my work is done in fitness. I work with Matt Jansen at Cam Jansen. I was blessed enough to have that opportunity to work together alongside him. So that's current day Dom.
How is it getting into business that's outside of like the fitness realm?
Honestly, it's refreshing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely refreshing. It's like you learn some different skills. Like you just learn some new avenues of, business that, like business is a huge thing in the fitness industry, obviously. And honestly, people in the fitness industry have the worst business like aspects. Like it's probably one of the things that fitness people need to work on the most. But like, now dealing with people outside of fitness and just seeing like their business aspects and the way they operate and do things, it's honestly helped me a lot on my fitness end too, scalability and just systems and whatnot. So it's refreshing for sure. Just like anything, you do something for a long time, it's nice to get your toes out of it for a little bit.
Yeah. Do you think it's refreshing though? Because it's not like it's 100% on you, but it's not like on you. If you know what I mean? Like in fitness and everything, it's like you have to get the results, right? Like you like.
Well, yeah, and I think like a huge thing with like getting into business outside of fitness is if you're a coach specifically, like fitness is directly on you. Like your time, you have to be sitting there, you have to be doing it. When you're dealing with some other businesses like outside of fitness, like I'm completely hands off on some of these things. Like I don't even have to like show up if I don't want to, right? Like, and that's so different with what I've been doing for the last, almost a decade. So like, it's been a real like cool. It's been a cool shift, honestly. Like I like it a lot.
Yeah, and what triggered you getting into like other opportunities outside of that? Because I know coaching for you has been pretty big and it's grown really rapidly for you. So what made you kind of stem down like different paths?
Well, we look at like opportunity and like, and I think having a kid was something that really kind of sparked that in me. Was like, I can't be, working 12 hours a day at the computer for the rest of my life. I need to get to a point where I have avenues where I can just like, you know what, bro, I ain't working today. I'm going to go take Blake to a soccer game, right? Like I want to be able to have that luxury. And that was a big driver of like making sure that I started dabbling with things outside of fitness. But also like, even other avenues of income, like people talk about like, you should have multiple streams of income. But like, I also think, you could look at like what I do for coaching, right? Like,
yep.
I coach competitors, I coach lifestyle, and I mentor, right? So that's like 3 streams of income within one business, right?
Yeah.
I offer 3 specific services. Then I have a gym opening, so that'll be a 4th. And then I have another thing opening, that'll be a 5th. And then working on another thing to be a 6th. So like, opening up avenues, but those other 3 don't really require me too much, like how coaching does, right?
Yeah,
or mentoring. Like I have to be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually was going to ask that. I was like, how has your life actually changed since having your son, like in terms of things?
Oh, dude, tremendously.
Yeah.
One, it's the best thing in the world. It's like there's honestly, dude. So right before I had him, all my friends were telling my friends with kids. I have a ton of friends who aren't in the fitness industry. Like some of
Okay.
my closest friends are not fitness people, but just so like hearing life from their spectrum is different than talking to people that we're familiar with in our space. But like they were all telling me, like, man, like you can't put into words what it's like to have a kid. And I was, obviously you can't understand that until you actually experience it. And now when I try to tell you what it's like, it's really hard to just find the words for it because it really is something that's like, it's a once in a lifetime kind of experience. But no, like your mindset changes. Like it's now like yeah, like I'm married and I have a wife, and we've been married for this. We're going on 4 years, and like you know that's a big commitment and everything. But at the end of the day, like my wife can take care of herself. My son can't take care of himself, right?
Yeah.
So it's like now it's like this person is like fully dependent on you to be taken care of, to be fed, to be clothed, to be sheltered, right? And that like really, dude, that was like a shot of nitrous like in my tank, like right when he was born, because I was like, I gotta really make it like, I gotta really push myself to get us to a point where everything is really nice and comfortable.
Yeah, I think that's been like a thing that I've noticed with you as of late. Like you've just been like rapidly moving, right? Like
Yeah,
since it seems like you've had Blake, like you just been like move after move after move after move. And is that kind of how you're
yeah,
approaching life now, where you're like, like you're kind of under a little bit of pressure to like make moves that you need to make now, rather than like
yeah.
take
It,
time to
it is.
let things kind of like settle out and see what happens?
No, it is for sure. It's like it's probably the biggest blessing and curse at the same time because like I've been making some really rapid moves, been really aggressive with things, and like I've seen a lot of success. Like like thank God. But also it's a curse because it does eat up a lot of time. Like my
Mhm.
days are long, or there's days I don't even see him because by the time I'm done working, it's he's in bed asleep. But it's something too I had to think about and like talk to like my dad and talk to like some of my older cousins with kids, and they're like, listen, yes, this is an important time, but he's not going to remember you not being home right now. Get the work done now so that once he can remember those things, you're present, right?
Yeah.
Which made me start feeling a little less guilty about it. But
Mhm.
I think it's also important too to recognize that it's okay to do that right now for me. But yeah, man, no, I've been moving really really fast lately.
And how does it feel moving that like how do you feel moving that fast in terms of everything? Because
Oh,
I
I
feel
mean,
like
it
a
gets
lot of people can
overwhelming
get
at times.
yeah, I was going to say a lot of people can get overwhelmed when you're trying to make many different moves and many different plays at one time and trying to like balance all of that.
Yeah, so it took a lot of like it takes a lot of like scheduling. Like I live on my Google Calendar. Like if it is not on my Google Calendar, I don't even know if it's happening or not. So like I have like, my mentoring calls throughout the week, and
Yeah.
like those are obviously scheduled out ahead of time. But then like any empty space I have on a calendar, I fill it up. Like I'll drag it, open it, say I'm going to do check-ins during this time, or I'm going to do, I'm opening a gym, so like I have equipment meeting at this time, or I have POS system meeting at this time, like whatever it is, and just block it out, block it out, block it out, and like my productivity has gone through the roof because of that. Because when I see something like I'm supposed to be doing at that time, I'll actually sit there and do it. Like, so with if it's not written out there, you might procrastinate it, you might push it back. But if it's on my calendar as like a to do that day at that time, I'll make sure that I'm sitting there doing it.
I think that's a big thing for a lot of people, like when it comes down to it. I feel like if you don't live by like a schedule or at least like a routine, you're just going to be overwhelmed the whole time, especially with that.
Yeah,
Like trying to balance six things for you in terms of that. Like, like there's always different clients and then you got your other businesses. Like, still trying to balance all that into one is still very, very like challenging in a way. And you would probably get
yeah.
overwhelmed pretty quickly if you didn't have that calendar.
No, I would for sure. But like even that, like I just had to make sure that things got scheduled out perfectly. Like all my lifestyle clients, like check in on one day, right? Majority of my mentoring calls are on one day, right? My clients like are in prep, like they're on a schedule of checking in now. So like everything is scheduled so that I do have blocks of like Wednesdays, for example, are a day where I don't have much to do. It's a very like kind of open day. Like
Mm-hmm.
I might have a call with like Mike, Nicole, and Jenna, and
Yep.
then like we'll have a call and that's it. Some days that's the only thing I have, but then that allows me to put in the gym meetings, the all the other like things that I have to do while staying regularly like just in a good workflow.
Yeah, definitely. So kind of wanted to chat about that actually, like, because you talked about your mentorship really, and I kind of want to bring that in. How did you find like your passion within mentorship? Because I feel like that's also come very recently, probably within what the last
Yeah.
like year and a half. Um, how did that come to be, like in terms of building that up? And how do you feel kind of influencing so many coaches now doing that?
So a couple years ago, um, I was a guest on, oh my God, what is Scott McNally's podcast?
Blood was
Um,
it Blood, Sweat, and Gear?
I wasn't on Blood, Sweat, and Gear. I was on the other one that he had. Whatever. Anyways,
They
so
have like eight. They have like 8 million podcasts.
yeah, they had a bunch. They had a bunch. So I was a guest on that podcast, and he wanted to do a series like a nutrition series or something. So we like
Yeah.
started the first call, and like I started going right, and I'm going, and he stops the recording, and he's like, "Dom, I'm gonna be honest with you, dude. This shit's over my head." And he's like,
Yeah.
maybe he's like, maybe we need to scale this back a little bit. And then he said something to me that kind of has always like sat in the back of my head. He was like, he's like, I could see you presenting like in seminars and in front of people and just the way you are. And like, I had just finished school at the time too. And when he said that to me, I was like, oh damn, that's pretty cool that he thinks of me like that. Because like nobody really knew who I was like when I did that podcast. I know Scott because of Michigan. We live not too far away from each other,
Yeah.
and
But this was
he
like a
had me on
while
more.
ago. This is like a long time ago.
Oh, dude, this was like probably 2020, 2019.
Oh yeah, this is a good bit ago.
Yeah, this is a long time ago. Um, so yeah, so he did that, and then I was like, okay, that kind of planted a seed in my head. And then fast forward all the way to last June, um, a company that I was working with, we had like an apprenticeship program
Yeah.
that we like kind of interviewed some coaches for and like brought some coaches on, and we did like a work under us kind of approach to things, and then a lot of as education call every week, and I built out a lot of the modules for that. We did a lot of like education through that, and then that had some good success. And Mike was one of those coaches, Nicole was one of those coaches that came out of that. And then I had another guy just randomly text me on Instagram and was like, hey man, do you do any mentoring? And I was like, no, never thought of it. And then he's like I'd love to learn from you. I was like, dude, I don't even know what to charge you. And then I
Oh,
just like brought him on, and he's still with me to this day. And we've been doing mentoring for a while now, him and I. And then I just got more and more inquiries about it and for it. And I was like, you know what? Like education was something that I always wanted to do. When I was doing my master's, I wanted to do my PhD and I wanted to teach. That was like essentially the goal.
yeah.
When I was doing my exercise phys master's, I wanted to teach it. So I always had that passion for education, and then mentoring just kind of let me into that role. And then like obviously our friends like Austin and Jeff and everyone does a really good job mentoring and educating. And I just I wanted to teach the things that I wanted to teach, and I think people really appreciate the stuff that I do talk about.
It's very much over everyone's head.
Yeah.
I understand it, but for some people it could be over your head if you once you get into like the digestion aspects of it and everything like that with you. Because you can go on pretty quickly with that. That got pretty deep. That one was probably the deepest thing I've ever learned on digestion. And I took a college course on that. And you probably explained it way better than any college course did. Um,
That makes me happy.
Hey, I'm actually mentored by all three of you. That's actually the funny part.
I know that's funny.
Hey,
You get a
I
little
mean,
taste of everybody.
yeah, just a little bit,
I mean,
sprinkled
dude,
with.
I think that's a good thing though, because like one of the things that I always tell like people is why don't you learn from a lot of different people and then take the aspects that resonate with you the most and apply them to your coaching. Like my coaching is very like I really like the way this guy did this. I like the way this guy does this. I like the way this guy did this. I like the way this book explained this, and kind of just meshed it all together because I don't think there's a one way fits all kind of thing. So I think that's a good way to learn. Like Jeff teaches things in one way. I teach things one way. Austin teaches things one way. Like nobody's wrong. It's
No.
just a different pathway to get to the same place most of the time. And I think that just comes with like, now let's throw your audience on top of that. Who are you working with, right? Maybe Austin's way is way better because of the people you work with. Maybe my way is better because of the people so like, there's so many different ways. That's why, I think that's why Jeff and I became pretty good friends is because like we see that with each other pretty well. And, we talk all the time, like about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think it's not even just learning like from other people too as well. I think it's just you don't want to get stuck in one singular path, right? Because I think a lot
Yeah.
of people once you get stuck with like a mentor, I find that a lot of people stick with that mentor, especially in this industry, and they continue just down like this one way narrow path. And then eventually like you have to unwire all the things that you actually wired up. And so that's where I was at, right? Because I was working with some people for a very long time here. And that's why I was like, okay, I need some different views. And that's why I signed up with you, right? Because it's just like you you reach all the demographics in a way in just like an easier understanding and like different strategies. And then that lightens you up over, okay, what can I actually apply here? So I think that's why a lot of people should do like as many courses with different people as possible, just because you're not gonna just see one single way and be like, okay, that's how you should do it. Or you don't like become like
Mm-hmm.
a protocol coach in a way, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I definitely agree with you on that. I think, like for me, like I learned a lot of stuff from forums, from, actually like the first exposure I had to like learning something from somebody was Matt Porter. And Matt Porter was alive and coaching and everything. And he was a big influence on a lot of the coaching stuff in the beginning for me. And then I learned a lot from like JP, um, Dr. Dean, Broderick. So like I've learned a ton from it, a lot of different avenues, a lot of different places who were like some of them completely contradicted each other. But like
Yeah.
at least it was good to see that because then I could see kind of like in practice what made more sense to do. Because I think like you can get taught everything, but like application will like exceeds all.
Yeah, I was gonna say everyone has like the same basic underlying like foundation, and then it's just how you
Yeah.
branch off of that into the application aspect of it. Like everyone has the same knowledge, and then it's just applications very different in terms of things. Do you still listen to those? You still listen to those JP videos when you train?
Hell yeah. Hell yeah, dude. I was listening to one yesterday before I started bench pressing.
Oh my! Oh, you regular bench pressing again?
No, no, I was dumbbell pressing. I can't bench press right now. I thought I tore my pec bench pressing.
I wouldn't be surprised. That wouldn't be the first bodybuilder to do that.
No, no, and I don't want
That
to do that, so I'm good.
actually, I wanted to touch on your bodybuilding because I think now you're so well known as like a coach that a lot of people don't know that you were actually. I mean, you got shredded in your last show. I mean, you and Cam
Yeah.
absolutely brought an insane package. Um, can you talk about the decision, kind of foregoing like your own selfish goal with bodybuilding to kind of become more selfless with things, like especially because it seems like you were very in there with bodybuilding, and then you kind of left just to kind of dive more into the things that truly matter in life. And I don't think a lot of people understand this when it comes down to like fitness and health, and that it doesn't need to be everything. Like you could still encompass it in your life without it
Hmm.
fully being all of it.
Yeah. So my bodybuilding, my bodybuilding like goals. really changed after I had Blake, um, because one, it's very, listen, when you have your first kid, you're going to be like, the first month or two, you're not sleeping. Like, nothing is regimented. It's everything. You're trying to learn his routine or her routine, and it's just a lot. Like, so that kind of took a hit on like my training and eating and stuff, and which was expected. I kind of knew that going into it. Um, and then after the fact, like, I wanted to like, I probably had a little bit of like, I don't want to say like I didn't have like a health scare, but I just had like a health realization and was like, dude, I got this little kid that I got to kind of watch over and take care of right now. Like, I don't need to be slamming drugs right now. So, like, all of 22, I don't even think I did like a true cycle. I probably like escalated my tests and periods here and there, but like I was pretty much on like a TRT dose of tests majority of 2022. Um, and I got down to like 180 ish, just like naturally, like kind of like
Yeah.
set point theory, I guess you could call it. My body just kind of liked being around there. But I was still training. I was still pretty strong. And then like, then I started getting a little bit more out there on like social media and like with coaching and doing really well with clients and, having really good finishes. And then the gym business was a 100% go. And I was like, damn, like, all right, I think I need to get back to a little bit more of looking the part again and start walking the walk again. Because that it just helps. Like my clients really like seeing me train. They like really seeing me do the things that they're doing. So then I got back on the horse a little bit, but nothing like I have ever done in the past. Competitive bodybuilding, I don't think will happen again for me. Like if you ask me, are you going to compete again right now? To be honest, I have no idea. With like the gym opening and other projects going, like I don't see it being a necessary future for me right now.
Hmm.
But I think a lot of that had to do with like the shift in my values, right? Like I posted this the other day, like everyone needs, like, visions are completely different than goals. Like everyone needs a vision, right? So like where's Anthony sitting in 3 years? Like, talk to yourself in the first person, right? I'm sitting at blah 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 doing blah blah blah, right? um and your values shift your values shift as you go through paradigms and life changes, right?
Yeah.
We all have these big paradigm shifts that happen in our life, right? It happens in society even. Like and having a kid, getting married, doing things like that are really big paradigm shifts in your life.
Yeah.
And your values change when that happens, right? The things that you value, right? And that was a big thing. My values shifted a lot. And like, becoming an IFBB pro was not that high up on the value list anymore. Because now I had a lot more important things that needed to be handled and taken care of. And really, it doesn't even fit my vision too much at this point. To
Do you
be
think
to
that?
be
Do you
like
think some
honest.
people? Do you think some people struggle with that when they get those paradigm shifts to actually
Yeah, for
change
sure.
who they are, and like,
They have a it is hard. It's hard to change like your identity, right? Like I got back into using some PEDs again, and I got back into like training pretty heavy and hard again, and like but I recognized that like that was probably all I needed to like keep the identity
yeah.
of training, right? It's enough for me right now. Competing is really not my identity.
Hmm.
It never was. Like I got into competing because of how much I loved training and how much I loved like, taking the physique to different levels. Not so much because I actually liked competing, but dude, I have this conversation with people all the time who are like trying to become coaches, but who are like competitive athletes at the same time. And they're like, well, I don't want to sacrifice like my training, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, well, you are not going to, if you're trying to, if you're in the middle and you got one thing here and one thing here, and you're trying to pull yourself in both, guess what? You're staying in the middle. You're not moving.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's a thing that a lot of people have a hard time, like really coming to understanding with and really saying, okay, maybe this isn't the time for me to be competing right now. I see it all the time, dude. You know how many times I've had to like lecture people, like, dude, you need to focus on your money. You need to focus on, things at home. Like, why are you competing right now? Like, this is just like not conducive to your life.
Do you think they're always stuck on competing because literally bodybuilding is their only identity?
Yeah, they don't have any hobbies.
Yeah.
I think
That-
everybody needs I think everybody needs hobbies outside of fitness. Like if you're in the fitness industry, I think you need a hobby outside of fitness to let you disconnect and detach from fitness.
yeah. I think so. Like I find you get the most progress out of that. Like when you can actually like detach away and you're not thinking about it. Like to truly be honest, like in my opinion, bodybuilding is not hard. Like
No, it's not.
that's just my opinion. I think everyone makes it seem like it's way harder than it actually is to do. I'm like I'm like it's really
I
like
fully agree with you. I don't think it's that hard. Like, if you really want to make sure you're doing everything, dude, you eat your meals, you go to the gym. Like, bodybuilding should take like a fraction of your day, and the rest of your day should be productive with something different, or doing something different, or having a hobby, right? Or, you know, and I think the less you put all your eggs into bodybuilding, the better bodybuilder you end up becoming. Just because you're able to disconnect from that. Like a lot of people like chase bodybuilding in a way of like they want to be, you know, they want to be sponsored, they want to be making money, they want to be doing all this stuff with bodybuilding that if they sacrifice too much of their normal like work life and career life and all that, well, you might not even have the money to continue to do the things you need to do in bodybuilding to even get there, right?
yeah.
And
Hmm.
I think that's where some people miss the ball.
Yeah, I'm finding just like myself like seeing some people like I coach a lot of the younger gen too, like people my age or like a little bit less than me, and I'm trying to instill in them like they get so worried like if they have to take like a few weeks off the gym. I'm like, go do like I see them all the time. Like I take note over what some of my athletes do. I'm like, go get into like your photography thing that you're doing. Like go actually like enjoy that shit. Because I'm like, you really it's a pipe dream to think that you're gonna get to where you ultimately want to get to. It's great to have that goal there to push you to go that far. But I'm like, it's a 1 in a million shot here. Like like you have to have everything lined up perfectly for it to actually happen. And so I think it's just like so many people get wrapped up in that pipe dream of it working that they just don't and they don't have fun with life either. I feel like life's just miserable, in my opinion, when you just fully focus on bodybuilding whatsoever.
Yeah, your life gets miserable and like you don't enjoy bodybuilding. Like even the bodybuilding thing starts to not get fun. I mean, I've always said you want to be a really good bodybuilder, you need to just make sure you're having fun during your bodybuilding. Like, make sure that you're enjoying what you're doing, right? Enjoying your training, enjoying, everything you can. Like, even if that means that I have to like maybe put a movement or two in a plan where like I could probably put a different one that might be better, but they enjoy this one more. Guess what? I rather have them enjoy the training a little bit more because they're probably gonna see more progress because it's just enjoyment for them.
Hmm. And now going back to that kind of like that paradigm and that shifting, how do you think people could go about that doing better, or what helped you kind of get through that in terms of like that shift in that identity through and through?
Well, I think you need to reassess your values every 6 months to a year.
Mhm.
Like, what are the things that you really enjoy, right? What are the things you like spending money on? What are the things that you like, watching? What are things you like learning? What are family things that you enjoy? Like, going through that and really like laying out your values every, half year to a year will probably keep you in a little bit more of a present mindset so that
Mhm.
you can recognize like am I not valuing something I should be valuing right now, or am I valuing something too much that could value something different a little bit more? Like, and I think it's a good reality check because like what I like to do is like those values I'll answer like three to each one,
Mhm.
and like those three they change, like
Yep.
they really do change as like time goes on, dude. And if they're not, you might sit there and write those values down, and you might look at it one day and be like, man, should I really be focusing on this much right now? Like, just seeing it could probably help you kind of recognize like what you need to change.
I feel like that's the hardest part to what you're asking someone to do here, right? Because you're
Oh
you're
yeah,
asking someone to literally face. They're like, and I think this is why people don't do this here, and why they stick to the same values over and over and over again, and they don't actually change with times, because they're afraid of like what they're going to have to let go of in return to become like the next level that they could be. Because if you don't change your values, I feel like you just stay at that same level. Like there's no
you do,
base. Like you just stay at that base. Like there's no going up the elevator to who you possibly could be throughout it.
dude.
And
You gotta pull an arrow back
yeah,
to shoot it forward, right? So if you have to take a step back and reassess and come to that reality check, guess what? You're probably going to propel yourself pretty fast forward.
was was it a hard was it a hard realization to come to at that time? I don't know if it was because you kind of had like that health scare and your son around the same time. Was it still really hard to kind of be like, okay, competitive bodybuilding is probably done? Like in all like after that show, just seeing where you were and how you did, was it still tough to kind of be like, fuck, I would love to give it one more go eventually, but it's probably done.
Honestly, no, man, it's not hard for me. Like, I didn't really have a health scare.
Yeah.
I had like my A1C was high, like
Oh.
too high. Like
Yeah.
it was a bit too high. So it was like I probably need to slow down a little bit here. So, but that was the one thing that kind of was like, I probably should ease up a little bit on this gaining weight thing. Um, and but like that was the main reason. But no, man, it's not like hard for me to do that. Like if all my like things were like in a good area and a good place right now, like to where like I could confidently say like, I could still do all the work I'm doing right now at 3 weeks out, like I'd probably do it. But like if I don't have to do it, I don't really like it's okay. Like it's not a difficult thing for me.
Like you just enjoyed the training. Like if there's one thing
Maybe
that
just
we
because,
see,
yeah, I'm
I
just
would
at
rather
peace
just
with
be
it, dude.
strong as fuck. I would rather just be strong as fuck and look good. Like
Dude, I want
be
to be
comparable.
strong and I want to be functional. Like, I want to be able to like run around with my kid in the yard, but I also
Yeah.
want to be able to deadlift 500 pounds, right? Like, that's kind of like what my training has been really focused on a lot.
So what you're saying is you're turning into a CrossFitter. That's what you're doing.
Never, 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 ever, never, ever.
Well, next time you post a gym video, you're gonna be doing some kips. You're gonna be doing some kip
Some
pull-ups.
kips and snatches and stuff. No,
I've been trying to get. I'm trying to get Dad Tom to be the same way. I want him to be functional.
dude, Tom's a beast.
Yeah, my dude. I got to shout out Tom. Tom is my dude. He got
We're
shredded.
going.
You got him absolutely. You
We're
got him
coming for
absolutely
the we're
killed.
coming for the dad bod summer
Yeah.
summer
No.
23K.
I'm gonna call him out on this podcast because he deserves to be called out. I've been waiting to see what his side leg looks like because I know what it looks like because I've seen it in person when he's shredded and he won't show it. And I'm like, show the damn side leg because his quads are definitely stripped as fuck right now.
Oh, I bet
Like,
that he wears basketball shorts when he checks in with me.
yeah, I know. He sends me the check-ins that he sends you, and I'm like, dog, I just want to see one side chest shot. Just give me one side shot. That's it, and then we're good.
I'm gonna on Friday when he checks in, I'm gonna send him an email and be like, "Hey man, you're gonna start sending bodybuilding poses. We're done with these. We're done with these shorts."
We're gonna get you some bodybuilding trunks. Step on stage. You're about 4 weeks out. We're good. Time to rock and roll.
Exactly.
Now, now I know you talked about a paradigm shift, and I think a big one for you was obviously kind of leaving school and going down that path as a coach. Like,
Yeah.
how hard was it to sit down and kind of have that? I guess this is kind of like the value conversation, to have that value conversation over something that, people dedicate a lot of their time towards when it comes down to school. Like, what was it? What did you do? Like 20 something years then in school at that point, probably. Um,
Yeah. What is it like? 13 years of school, like, is what kindergarten to senior year of high school, and then 7 years of college. Yeah, 20 years.
like, how hard was it to sit down and have that internal conversation and be like, okay, I either have two routes I can go and I need to pick now with it.
So when so I was getting ready to go to dental school. That
Mm-hmm.
was the plan. I
Okay.
had finished my bachelor's, took my DATs, the dental admissions test, and submitted applications. I got an interview at a school, got waitlisted at that school, talked to some people who like worked there. They said apply again next year, you'll get accepted. And I was like, okay. So I ended up I ended up reapplying the following year, and then that all went through and everything. And kind of before it all, I was like, I mean, I just don't want to do this. I was like, I was working as a dental assistant
Okay.
in a dental office,
Yeah.
and I was like, I cannot see myself doing this every day. Like the dentist I worked with, like I was like, this dude is miserable. Like I could not do this. Like to think that I would do this for the rest of my life, like there's no way,
Yeah, how did you come
And
to that decision to even like go to like how did that even come about to even go
dude,
to dental?
I just hated the job so much that I couldn't wait every day for the day to be done so I could go to the gym after. And even when I was working as a dental assistant, like I don't know if anybody's gonna listen to this and they are a dental assistant, like you do a lot of mouth work. Like you work in the mouth with the patient a lot. Like you assist the dentist with everything,
Yeah.
every procedure. And so like, yeah, I'm not doing the procedure, but I'm still in the mouth handing tools to him or suctioning or doing something also.
Hmm.
But like when I was like, there's no way I can't do this stuff every day. Like,
Yeah.
that's a crazy, crazy, thing to do.
Well, how did you even come?
So
How did you come to the conclusion though to go to dental school in the first place? Like, what made you want to become a dentist?
my godfather was a dentist, and he owned like a chain of dental offices. So it was kind of like here's an in.
So it's kind of like you were doing something. So it's kind of like that thing like a lot of people do, right? Like they go. And this is something that I recognize too. Like you go through a whole process just to find out that you're doing something that someone else really wanted you to do in a way.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what it was like. But dude, that's huge. Like in the Arab culture, like
Yeah.
we're very like we're very like pre-told what to do.
Okay.
Like you go to school, you become a lawyer, dentist, doctor, like pharmacist. Girls become MPs or PAs. Like it's just like a thing. Like it's just an expectation of like our culture in our community, and like it's changed over the last couple, like I would say over the last generation it's changed, but
Hmm.
for a while that's how it was. So like it was always like an expectation that you were just going to do those things. So like I had an option of like you're either becoming a lawyer, doctor, or dentist, right? It was like pretty much like those are the things you should be looking at doing. And so like when I decided not to do it, like I had like my older cousins like calling me and like, you okay, man? Like, is everything all right? Like, I mean, it was kind of funny,
I was going to ask,
but
does that actually, is that hard for you facing that, like, that traditional expectation, especially within the culture that you are, that it's very rooted in that? Was it very hard to kind of have that conversation, like with your parents or something like that, that you were kind of going against the grain a little bit?
no, it wasn't too hard with my parents because they were like pretty open to it.
Okay.
They had the feeling, like they kind of had like they could see it coming,
Yeah.
Um, it was probably harder to have with like some of my older cousins and stuff who like reached out to me and like just was like really making sure like I was making the right decision, and like, are you sure you're willing to give up the security of having a job as a dentist and stuff like that? And I was like, yeah, like you know I just couldn't do this. Like there's no way I could do this for the rest of my life. But that was like a big thing for me, like sitting down and thinking about it, because I was like, I love fitness. I couldn't wait to go to the gym once the day of work was over. Like I didn't care to study for my DAT that much. Like, I have a low learning curve. It doesn't take me much to learn. It doesn't take me a long time to learn something. So
Yeah.
like, I was like, I didn't really care to study too much. So like, I didn't put all my effort into all that stuff. And that should have been my first red flag, like, looking back at things. So then I decided, like, I'll just pursue this fitness stuff. And my now wife, we were dating at the time when I decided all this. And she was like, so what are you going to do? And I was like, I don't know. I'm just going to kind of figure it out. Like, and then I
Yeah.
started coaching. No, I didn't start coaching. I'm sorry. I went and did my master's in exercise
Okay.
science and specialized in physiology. And in school, I became a personal trainer. And then I was a personal trainer going to school. And then online coaching started while I was a personal trainer. And then I had to make a huge decision during that too. Like I was doing pretty well as a personal trainer. Like I was doing like 40 to almost 50 hours of training a week. Um,
Mhm.
and I was making pretty good money doing that. But then I saw the outlet online coaching was starting to get, and then I was starting to make like double the amount online that I was making in person some months. And I was like, all right, like maybe this was just a really good month. Let's give it a little bit more time. Let's see how consistent this is.
And then just
Right.
kept ticking
And
off.
then, yeah, it just kept ticking up and staying consistent. And then I made a decision to leave personal training. I was like, I can't focus. I go, this has too much exponential growth for me to not focus on right now. Right. I can take the pay cut of not receiving the gym anymore and be okay with the money I'm making online and just focus on online and really getting it to grow.
Yeah, I think a lot of people need to see that too. Though when you have that kind of like light bulb moment there, and you're like,
Yeah.
okay, I could see where it's trending to, and you have to make that choice. Like, I feel like a lot of people just stick with like they want to play it safe and kind of manage both, but then they leave like you're full on passion allowed it to rise like with it, and you could probably I bet you enjoyed the gym a lot more because you weren't in it all the time too.
Yeah. No, I did. Like, dude, I couldn't even. I don't know if you ever worked as a personal trainer or anything, but like I didn't train at the gym that I worked at because I just couldn't stay there any longer.
So one thing I wish I did actually, I wish I actually did personal train for a little
I
bit.
will say, I think it has a lot of really good benefits. Like one thing it really helped me with was like you learn people. Like you learn people have real life problems and real life issues. I always told people like the best online coaches were ones that were personal trainers, just because they can recognize that people aren't robots.
Yeah, I find you can be like I feel like I've been successful at it so far because like just from like what I've been through as a person, and I've been able to relate to people kind of through it, and I haven't
Yeah,
been
you're a personable
individual.
person though. A lot
Yeah,
of coaches aren't.
no, it's really funny. I don't think a lot of people, and they don't give athletes slack, and that actually causes like progressions to fall. I find so. I mean, that's a whole nother discussion for another day. But how crucial was Dina to be kind of through that whole process, like having her have your back, especially when you made that choice?
Oh,
Like,
I
was
mean
she
that
like freaking
I
out on the
probably
inside?
wouldn't. I probably wouldn't have done it. Like she had told me like after I told her, she was like, "I've been waiting for you to tell me this," and I was like, "Oh, well then, at least at least I know that like me, right?" And she was really open to it. I think part of the reason why too though was like her brother, my brother-in-law, is a
Mhm.
very very successful jujitsu competitor and
Okay.
jujitsu coach. He's actually ninth in the world right now, pound for pound. In the and
Holy
yeah,
no,
so
that's sick.
he's a extremely successful jujitsu competitor. He owns a really big school here in Michigan. Um, and so she probably like understood it a bit more because of him, like the
Mhm.
non-traditional like path and things like that. Um, so she saw that like if somebody is passionate about something enough, like they can make it really successful. And now, fast forward to where we're at, and
Do you think that's a problem with a lot of things in today's society too? Is that a lot of people just aren't passionate about what they do and
I think a lot of
things?
people lack passion, man. A
How
lot of
so?
people lack passion. I just think a lot of people just, I think like, I mean, to quote, I think a lot of people are stuck in the matrix. Like, they're just stuck in like the society system of like you go to work, you go get a job, you go get a loan, you go get student debt, you go get a house, you get a mortgage, and you work on a negative balance income every month.
Yeah, and you work until you're 65, and then you can retire on a small check, right?
I
And that's
think,
it.
yeah, and I think that keeps people far away from finding passions because, I think society kind of is programmed almost to think that having passions is not okay. Like, because it takes away from the things you should be doing.
I think
And
also what steers people away probably is not just that. I think it's the time aspect too that goes behind it. Because at
yeah,
least if you're passionate about it, I think you can progress pretty quickly with it, but it still takes plenty of time. Like how long did it take you to go full time coach? Like from starting coaching to full time?
starting coaching to full time,
Yeah.
6 months.
Oh, that's pretty quick. But you started
Yeah.
training. So how far between in person
Okay,
training
so
and that?
here, starting personal training to when I was an online full time coach,
Yeah.
that was about 2.5 years.
Still, a lot of people will get. I feel like that's like the cutoff point for a lot of people. Like there's like a
Yeah.
big. I feel like you get to a crossroad there where you're like, okay, do I keep going or do I just quit and take that check that I get and call it and call it? And I feel like every single person gets to that point, and I don't know whether it's like, and that could be something like college, like for all that people. I think people underestimate what you could do at like 18 if you truly just put what and you actually like worked like a side job while investing into what you wanted to do. Um, but I find that there's always that cutoff point there. And that's usually the point to where you're about to see success and life kind of tests you that little bit extra to see if
Yeah.
you'll continue to move forward.
Dude, I think some of those tests are probably like a real testament to like a person's resilience to how important their passion actually is to them.
It's actually why I'm restarting this
Yeah.
because my big passion was my podcast. Like I coach, I love coaching. That's my other passion, and I'm fortunate enough that they both kind of collide together in a way. But I mean, like I drew close to 200,000 downloads in 3 years, 3.5 years of doing it. Like,
That's crazy.
so it's so, and then I kind of just, I chased after something and I kind of gave up on it after a while, kind of lost the flame after like 200 episodes or something. And I was like, I'm done. But now I'm like, nah, this is really what I like to do. Like, and I like to have like these conversations and be able to dig deep into people because like you already mentioned, I'm a people person. Like there's one big thing that I can do, it's connect with anyone at any
Yeah.
point in time. So like I'm even a testament of what you just said to where test someone's resilience. And I think people can get it back. Like there's always that chance, there's always that opportunity to ignite it again if they're willing to actually run that risk. But I think it's harder, especially if it was someone like in your circumstance now, where they have like a kid and they have many different things going on and trying to pay off like student loans and stuff like that. I think that's where a lot of people get caught up in it.
Yeah, I think so too. I think you could definitely get it back for sure. I mean, Nicole, one of the coaches that works with me, like, or worked with me when I had my own team, um, she was an online coach for a little bit, stopped completely, and then came back to coaching when we did like the program of the apprentice thing, and she had zero clients when she started, and now she's, I think like in the 30s or 40s now.
It's
Like,
pretty good.
but she like was online coaching, completely stopped, and then got it, back up. So, but I think you're right. I think there is a time. I think there is a time aspect to some people, especially depending on like parts of their life. Like I was, like, it probably wouldn't be as easy for me as it might have been somebody else that doesn't have much else going on or other people to rely on, like depend on and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's why I got back into it. Because I mean, we have two different scenarios, right? I'm single living in Bumblefuck, Ohio now. So I got no one else to worry about. I got nothing else to really kind of take care of except for myself, right? And that when you're a bodybuilder, that's actually pretty cheap to actually do when if you know how to budget correctly. Uh,
Yeah, for sure.
and then I kind of wanted to get into a big topic, which we've both had great conversations on. Stoic principles. I think this is a big way that you live, and I know you got a few tattoos recently that kind of symbolize those.
Yeah.
Can you kind of explain like getting into that and like how you got into it and like why you got into like
Um,
the stoicism type realm?
yeah, I think the big one was when I started or when I read Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, but like the obviously not his actual meditation, like Ryan's depiction of it, but Meditations was a good book to read and listen to, just because it you know it had what I like about Stoicism and just Stoics in general and the lifestyle is it's the hard truths that you should be recognizing. It's the things that you don't want to hear, but they're told to you anyways. And I think
Mhm.
that's a huge thing. Stoicism like allows you to develop as a person, and a lot of it just makes sense. Like especially like they have a huge focus on um, only focusing on the present time, right? Letting go of your past, not focusing on your future. And I think that's like that's a big one that I really like about Stoicism, because I think that's where like a lot of people get too caught up in like, and that's why I think a lot of people don't progress in life and anything. They don't like go of their past, and they focus too much on their future, right?
Mhm.
Um, and I think with just the belief system of it all, like having control of your emotions. Like really, there's only a few things you can control, right? You can
Yep.
you can control your thoughts, you can control your actions, right? You can't control a ton of stuff. And I think that's helped me as a coach too. One of my mentoring lessons in communication is emotions dictate reactions. And when you're talking to a client, you never react to a client. You need to be logical with a client, right? So if I'm ever getting emotional in a conversation with a client and maybe we're just kind of going back and forth or something, I'll step away from it completely. I might not answer for a couple hours or something, just because like I know I'm just going to react, right? I'm not going to respond the way I'm supposed to be responding, especially as a coach, because like we have such a big impact on our athletes. Like
Mhm.
they look at us as an authority, even if I'm 10 years younger than them, right? I'm still coach to them, right? So is for me to have like a emotional reaction to them, that could be a pretty nasty thing for them to experience. And I think that's why some coaches lose clients based on that kind of stuff. And I think that's one thing that Stoicism really preaches is like you should be making decisions and communication based on logic, not based on your emotion. Because you control your emotion, you control your thoughts, you control your actions. And I really like that. And I have tattooed on me Amor Fati, which means love your fate. So whatever your fate is at that moment in time, just love it, accept it, and just move on with it. Because guess
Yeah.
what? You can't change anything, right? You got dealt these cards, so play with them. You
See,
know,
that's what see
nobody's.
every single day I write. It was a big one, and I think it was in Ryan Holiday's book. It wasn't Stillness is the Key. It was the one. It was Obstacles the Way. He talks about Amor Fati, and he says like, if it happened, it was meant to happen, and you'll make the best of it. And
Yep.
that's something that I reiterate over to like anyone I talk to. Really, like when it comes down to things, like I've realized like people get stressed over so much here, and I'm just like the way that I take things now with athletes or anything or whatever conversations I'm having, and people are just stressed out. I'm like, it's just that like I could make a bigger deal out of it, but it's not worth it to make the bigger
Well,
deal.
that's
It's
the
better to
thing.
just
Like,
like adapt and move forward.
I think that's another thing. Like, Stoicism really teaches a good way of like why waste energy on things you have no control over, right? Because you're just dumping a lot of energy into things that you can't change, right? There's nothing you can do about that, right? If something happened, you can't reverse it from happening. It already happened, right? So why focus and why dump so much energy and stress into something that just isn't existent anymore? Um, because I think that's what, you know, I think that's what ruins a lot of like progression for people. I think career wise too is a big reason why a lot of people don't see any progress, because they're not willing to let go. They're not willing to. They're too focused on their future. Um, they're not focused on the present stuff they need to be dealing with during that day. Like I had a client reach out to me earlier, and she was like, "Yeah, I'm just overwhelmed, just too focused on the future," and like, just kind of talk to her about grounding herself. Right, good exercise. Grounding yourself is like being really, really surrounded by your senses at that time, because that'll really bring you back into that present moment, so that you kind of slow down a little bit more. Like for me, like, I mean, you earlier we were talking about like how fast paced I'm moving, right? Like I'm moving really fast paced with a lot of different things and doing a lot of different things. But like for me, I always can bring myself back to center if I need to. Um,
Mm-hmm.
just because, I can, it's something, I mean, it took me a long time to be able to do. And I still have my days where I do get overwhelmed and stuff, but it's a lot less frequent now.
Yeah, I think one of the big things is recognizing, even with Stoicism, one thing I've taken is it's okay to feel that overwhelmingness as long as you come
Hmm.
back to it, as long as you come back to where you're at. And I think why you're moving fast pace, if I can actually like think about this, is because I bet you're ticking off boxes each day and it kind of just goes like that. Like it's not like you're not thinking about what you have to do tomorrow. Like there's a list of what you have to do today and you just tick those boxes off. And then it just like consistently adds up like over time. Whereas so many people are like, okay, what do I got to do tomorrow? And they're thinking about it at like noon the day before. And I'm like, you still have half the day to freaking work. And I think that also goes into why you're moving so fast paced too, because one of the biggest Stoic principles that talks about is you only have today, right? Like you're not guaranteed tomorrow. So like you better make the most of it today, which is why like if I'm in my zone, I'm working until like 10 o'clock at night. Like if I'm feeling it, there's no chance of going to bed before 10, like
Yeah.
whatsoever, because like you only
Memento.
get
I
today.
mean, like memento mori, man. Like you only, you're gonna die eventually, and how do you want to be remembered when you die? I think that's a huge. What kind of impact are you looking to make? Is a huge thing that I really. That's one thing I really like, and that's how I've kind of like. That's kind of how I've depicted memento mori for me. Is more so like what what do I want to be remembered by when I die?
I was going to ask you, how do you view death now? Because it seemed, because that's what I was actually going to ask. I was like, let's discuss memento mori or how you see it. I think that's really interesting because a lot of people are, I,
I mean, I think like obviously there's nothing like I mean, I don't know. Death is obviously like a touchy subject, because I could sit here and say like, oh, it's just a part of life, but obviously if somebody really close to me died, I'd be pretty sad about it.
yeah,
But I think like to just read those words and try to understand those words. I think the biggest thing about that is just recognizing that you don't have all the time in the world to do everything you want to do, right? I think that's one thing a lot of people forget. And, a lot of people think like, oh, I'm just 25 years old. Like, I don't need to be at a certain point in my life. Hey, yes, I agree with that. You don't need to be at, but that's not an excuse to not be working or working towards something, right? Don't procrastinate because of an age thing. I think, I think that's what like memento mori can kind of help people understand. Like, you don't have all the time in the world to do something. And
yeah.
in my opinion, I think impact is more important than hype. Listen, man, if I have more impact than I do Instagram followers, I will be happy the day I die. Like, I don't care about fame. I don't care. But with impact comes attention, and the more impact you make, though, I think that's just more. I think that just is more. That's more important. I think for me, at least, like it's always been impact over hype. I've always said that, and I think that's my mentorship, my coaching, my your an experience with me, I want it to be impactful. I want it to make waves so that you carry that on to somebody else down the road.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's, I mean, the way I kind of live now is like just like the relationships I cultivate, like in terms of things. Like that's like the big thing for me in the way that I live. Like you only have 80 years. You may as well go say yes and make some fucking memories to things. Like
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people just say no, especially this is exactly what we were talking about in the beginning with their bodybuilders. I was like, go say yes to doing something that's outside of it. Because you're going to get there at like 35, 40 years old and you're going to be like, why the fuck did I waste my 20s saying no to these things? And like you don't have time, to catch up. And that's obviously
Yeah.
the biggest thing that's one of the biggest things I took away from Stoicism too, is just like, you're not immortal. Like that was one of the big ones that really stuck with me right away. Like was them discussing you live life as if you're immortal, yet you only have so much time left
Yeah.
to actually live and
You know,
experience
uh,
what it has to be.
I like that a lot too. And another one that actually just came to mind that I really like is critiques, and how Stoics are. How are you supposed to receive a critique? Um, and I think like that's something in a coaching scene is huge, because when an athlete doesn't do well, we're the first person they point the finger at, right? Oh, my coach fucked up. My coach should have did this. My coach should have did that, right?
Yeah.
Now, like I think like Stoics believe that, at least like when you receive a critique or a hate comment or whatever, you're supposed to look at the person that's saying it, and you're supposed to do a couple things. And one of the major things you're supposed to do is assess whether there's any truth to it, right? Is it a very emotional driven comment, or are they speaking truth to it, right? And you're the one who's going to be able to answer that truthfully, right? It's either a yes or
Mhm.
no question.
Yep.
And depending on how you answer that, is going to literally line you up on how you're supposed to take that. If there's no truth to a critique, why are you even wasting time thinking about it? Like, don't even think about it, right? I receive a lot of hate, dude, or at least I did. I don't know if I still do, but like I did, and like it was never any of it was never was any of it ever true, never, and it stopped bothering me once I realized that.
I
And that
feel I mean that's just another thing of like I don't even know why you waste the energy on hating on someone. Like
yeah,
just
baffles
move
me.
on, right? Like just go do something else. You can use that time way more wisely. Like someone commented a few weeks ago on one of my posts on Instagram, and they talked about how red my face was, and I was like, "You're really leaving this comment to discuss this?" And I was like, and it was so funny. I just like laughed. I was like, "Yeah, I'm just
Yeah,
gonna
I
wait
mean,
for I was just like, I'm just gonna let this be. Like, I didn't even respond myself, like whatsoever. I was like, it's not even worth it. I was like, I'm just
no,
gonna
it's
keep this
not.
comment here and just not respond because it's the best way. And so I mean, I think a lot of people could really benefit from Stoicism and learning this path here because it's really helped me over the last like 6, 7 months to really just come down and really see what's actually important in life, and it helps you get yourself in order pretty quickly. Like when it comes, like if you could be more grounded and be less about the future and the past, you will recognize how much more you could possibly do with your day and everything than you ever will. And you'll actually
Yeah,
start to be productive in society.
yeah. I mean, dude, a lot of people waste their time every day focusing on the day before or the day after, and they don't even recognize all the things they need to be doing the day of.
Hmm. And it also helps you take note of like the habits that aren't putting you in the right place either. Like,
Yeah,
like it really calls you out pretty quickly. So I recommend everybody go read Ryan Holiday's books at least to start, and then go read Meditations.
or
It's a
even
pretty good
just
book.
listen to a YouTube video like
Or
on the
listen.
top
That's what I
five,
do.
like the top five principles of Stoicism and how it can help you with your life. Like, I think it's
Dude,
huge.
I
Like,
listened to an hour. I listened to an hour one. It's like how to defeat negative thinking or something like that for people if they want to go listen to this. It's only an hour of just stoic quotes, like the whole
yeah,
time. Like this guy, and some of those guys have really great like
voices.
old school like Roman voices, and you're like,
Yeah,
yeah, I feel charged as fuck to listen to this shit. And I went like all old school, bro. I'd be like writing a journal, and I write like which one's my favorite quote for the day, And I literally would have like a candle lit and it would just be dark out because I wake up at like 5 o'clock in the morning and there'd be no light. And you're just like, yeah, I feel like I'm so badass right now.
You feel you can run into the Coliseum.
Exactly, bro. That's what I'm trying to do. It's so cool. It's so cool now going back and watching like Gladiator or something and
Oh
they just
yeah,
quote
you
it.
know,
And
like yeah,
you're like, yes.
Marcus
You're like,
Aurelius
nice.
is there.
Yeah. You're like, nice. I know that one. You're but
That's so funny.
bro, I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you being the first guest on the new
Thank you for
podcast.
having me, dude.
I do have the last 3 questions for everyone here. So let's bang those out right before you head out here. One, what should people take away from this episode?
Uh, you need to reassess your values and where you want to be in your life. I think that is something that people could really benefit from, just sitting down and really recognizing what they want in life. I suggest, reading or listening to some sort of Stoic, playlist, YouTube video or something, just to help you kind of grasp on, kind of what we were talking about if you're not familiar with it. And third is you probably shouldn't be too focused on what happened yesterday, and be more focused on what's happening today.
Awesome. Next, this kind of leads into reading or listening to. What 3 books do you think people should? 3 books or podcasts that you think people should read or listen to?
Your Next 5 Moves by Patrick Davis. Level Up by Mark Coles. And you can pick any Ryan Holiday book.
Awesome. And then last one, just like your own little, it's your time to shine, your 15 seconds of fame here. Where can people find you?
Instagram, my thing is @ and then _Dom Kuza. Very easy.
Yeah. He's usually very interactive actually. So you most likely will get a good response from him at any point in time. So if you guys did enjoy this episode, Dom and I would gladly appreciate if you guys share it on Instagram, if you guys tag us on your stories, and leave us a 5-star rating and review, obviously on Apple and Spotify. Go subscribe to the podcast. Use code SPADA at Morphogen Nutrition to save you guys 10% off. Other than that, we'll catch you guys for the next episode of the Noble Pursuit podcast.